The sky was dark. The storm had no mercy. Icy winds cut across the frozen land like blades. The snow fell heavy, each flake as sharp as glass. This was no ordinary storm. It was an endless storm, a storm that froze everything it touched. Trees stood like crystal statues. Rocks were covered in layers of ice. Even the air felt heavy and cruel. Far away, in the middle of this deadly storm, a small figure struggled. It was a child, but not a human child. Its skin glowed faintly, a pale blue, almost like light coming from inside. Two large eyes, shining with tears, looked out from a face that was not human. This was an alien child, alone, afraid, lost in the storm. The child cried, and its tears began to freeze the moment they touched its skin. Tiny crystals of ice formed on its cheeks. The child shivered, wrapping thin arms around its body, but the cold was too strong. The wind pushed against the child, almost knocking it down. The storm screamed louder, as if it wanted to swallow the child's whole. The alien child whispered in its strange language, voice breaking with fear, but no one could hear. There was no family, no friends. Only snow, only storm, only silence. The child tried to walk, but each step was heavy. Its legs were weak. It fell into the snow, face pressed against the icy ground. For a moment, the child did not move. Maybe this was the end. But then footsteps. Heavy footsteps, slow but steady, pressed into the snow nearby. At first, the child thought it was the beast of the storm, coming to finish what the cold had started. But these footsteps were different. They were not claws. They were boots. Human boots. Through the wall of snow, a figure appeared. A tall shadow walked against the wind, head bent low, a cloak whipping around in the storm. A human traveler, alone, just like the child. The human's face was hidden by a mask, protecting against the freezing air. But his eyes sharp, steady, looked forward with focus. He moved as if he had been walking for days, but still he did not stop. The child lifted its head weakly, eyes wide, heart pounding with both hope and fear. The human stopped. T had seen it. A small, glowing body lying helpless in the snow. For a long moment, nothing happened. The storm howled around them. But in that frozen second, the world grew quiet. The human looked at the child. The child looked back at the human. Two different worlds, meeting in the heart of the ice. The human knelt down. His hand reached out, slow, careful. The child flinched, not knowing if this was friend or enemy. The human spoke softly, though the wind almost carried his words away. The language was not the same. The child could not understand, but the voice was calm, gentle. Not a voice of harm. The human took off his pack and pulled out a blanket. Thick, warm, glowing faintly with heating threads inside. He wrapped it around the alien child's shoulders. The child gasped as the warmth touched its frozen skin. For the first time in hours, maybe days, the child felt heat. Its tears stopped freezing. The tiny body shook, not only from cold, but also from sudden hope. The human checked the child's face. He touched the ice crystals on the cheeks and brushed them away. His eyes softened. He did not know where this child had come from. He did not know why it was here. But he knew one thing. If he left it, the storm would kill it. The wind roared, louder, as if angry that the child was being saved. The snow thickened, turning into a white wall around them. The human looked up at the storm. He had little time. They needed shelter. They stayed here, both would freeze. He picked up the child. The alien was light, fragile, almost weightless in his arms. The child made a weak sound, a word in its own tongue, soft and broken. The human could not understand, but he tightened his grip, holding the child close to his chest. He spoke again, low and calm. His voice promised safety, even if the words were unknown. Step by step, he pushed forward. The snow hit his face like knives. The wind screamed, trying to push him back. But he did not stop. His boots sank deep into the white ground, leaving heavy prints that the storm tried to erase. Still, he moved. Behind them, the storm seemed alive. Shadows shifted in the snow. Strange shapes flickered in the blizzard, almost like creatures watching. The child's eyes widened in fear. It knew. The storm was not just weather. Something else was hiding in it. Something dark. Something that hunted. The human felt the child's body tense in his arms. He glanced behind but saw nothing. Only snow. Only white emptiness. Still, a shiver ran down his spine. He kept walking. Faster now, as if the storm itself was following. The child buried its face against his chest, whispering again in that strange language. The human could not understand, but he could feel the fear in the small voice. He whispered back, in his own tongue, "You'll be safe. I'll protect you." The words were simple, but the meaning was clear. Far ahead, through the blinding storm, the dark outline of a cave appeared. Shelter, a place to hide from the wind. The human steps grew quicker. The child lifted its head, eyes glowing faintly, and for the first time, it did not cry. There was hope, but the storm screamed one last time, louder than ever. And from deep inside the white curtain of snow, a roar echoed back. A sound not made by wind, sound not made by nature. A sound of something alive, something big, something hunting. The human stopped at the mouth of the cave, holding the child close. His eyes narrowed. The storm had given them shelter, but it had also given them a warning. They were not alone, and the real danger was only beginning. The cave was cold, but at least the storm could not reach inside. Snowflakes still blew at the entrance, but once the human stepped deeper, the wind softened. The sound of the storm fading into a dull roar. He lowered the alien child gently onto the icy ground. The child's eyes, large and glowing, blinked in the dim light. The blanket still covered its small body, faint warmth fighting against the chill. For a moment, neither moved. The human took off his frost-covered mask. His breath came out in clouds, heavy and slow. The alien child stared, confused but curious. Its kind had never seen a human before. The sharp features, the strong hands, the tired eyes, everything was strange. Everything was frightening. The child trembled, pulling the blanket closer. Its voice came out in a broken whisper, speaking in its own language. Soft syllables that the human could not understand. The human crouched down, lowering himself to the child's level. He placed his hand gently on the ground between the man's open gesture. Not a threat. The child flinched, then hesitated. The warmth of the blanket reminded it that this strange being had not harmed it. Still, fear lingered. Alone in the storm, the child had known only danger. Now, for the first time, someone had stopped, someone had helped. The human spoke, his voice calm, slow, careful. The words were simple, though the child could not understand their meaning. "You are safe. No harm will come." His tone carried the message, even if the language did not. The child tilted its head, listening. A small sound escaped its lips, almost like a question. The human gave a faint smile, one that reached his eyes. He pulled out a small packet from his pack and opened it. Inside was dried food, hard and simple, but enough to keep someone alive. He broke a piece and placed it on the ground, sliding it slowly toward the child. The alien's eyes followed it. Hunger burned in its tiny frame, stronger than fear. Slowly, Carefully, it reached out with trembling fingers and picked up the food. It sniffed first, uncertain, then took a small bite. Its face softened. It was not much, but it was life. The human watched, relief in his gaze. Step by step, trust was forming. Not much. Just a thin thread. But sometimes, even a thin thread was enough to save a life. The fire came next. The human set down a small device, pressed a button, and a spark burst into flame. The warmth spread quickly, filling the cave with faint orange light. The alien child gasped, eyes wide. It had never seen fire before. To it, the flames looked alive, dancing, flickering, moving as if it had a soul. The child reached out, but the human quickly shook his head and raised a hand. "Careful," he said softly. His tone was gentle, but firm. The child understood. Fire was life, but fire was also danger. Together, they sat near the flame. The human stretched his arms, exhaustion pressing on him. The child curled close to the blanket, watching him with quiet eyes. The silence between them was not heavy now. It was curious. A silence of questions, of wonder. But deep inside the cave, a sound broke the calm. A faint scratch. Then another. Then a low, slow growl. The child froze, eyes wide with sudden terror. It whispered one word in its own tongue, over and over again. "Storm beast. Storm beast." The human's head snapped toward the darkness. His eyes narrowed, muscles tense. He reached for his weapon, a simple metal blade strapped to his side. He had carried it for survival, not war. But now, he gripped it firmly. The growl came again, closer this time. The firelight flickered across the cave walls, shadows shifting, twisting into strange shapes. For a moment, it looked as if the stone itself was alive. The child crawled back, pressing against the wall, shivering. The human stepped forward, placing himself between the child and the darkness. His blade gleamed faintly in the firelight. His breathing slowed. His heart beat steadied. He was ready. The sound grew louder, scratches against the ice, heavy breaths, echoing in the cave. And then a pair of glowing eyes appeared in the shadows. Large, predatory. Watching the child whimpered, clutching the blanket tight. The human raised his blade higher. The fire crackled, only light against the blackness of the cave. The beast's outline began to form, huge, twisted, covered in jagged ice that grew from its skin like armor. Its mouth opened, revealing teeth like frozen knives. It stepped forward, slow and deliberate. Each step sent a tremor through the cave floor. The human stood firm. The child hid behind him, tiny fingers clutching the blanket, eyes full of tears. The storm outside screamed louder, almost as if the storm itself was calling the beast forward. The human tightened his grip on the blade, his other hand reaching back, touching the child's shoulder in a silent promise. "I will not let it take you." The beast growled again, shaking the cave. Its breath was cold, mist spilling from its mouth, like smoke. The fire flickered under its presence, as if the flames themselves were afraid. The human took one step forward. The child gasped, but the human's eyes never wavered. He was not leaving, not running, not while the child needed him. For the first time, the alien child looked at him not with fear, but with hope. This strange being from another world, this human, was willing to fight for it. The beast lowered its head, ready to strike. The human raised his blade, firelight glinting on the steel. The child whispered again, "Storm beast." The battle inside the cave was about to begin, and the fragile thread of trust between a lost alien child and a lone human would now be tested in fire, ice, and blood. The fire burned weakly, its light trembling on the icy cave walls. The alien child pressed itself against the stone, trembling under the blanket. The human stood in front of it, blade raised, eyes fixed on the shadow that now took form. The beast was huge. Its body was made of muscle and ice, covered in jagged spikes that glistened in the firelight. Its eyes burned white, like frozen moons. Frost clung to its mouth, and every breath it released filled the air with a mist colder than the storm outside. The human held his ground. His heart pounded, but his stance did not break. The alien child's small hand clutched the blanket tightly, whispering words in its own tongue. Words of fear. Words of prayer. The beast let out a roar that shook the cave, echoing like thunder. Ice fell from the ceiling in sharp shards. The human raised his blade, ready to strike if it came closer. But the beast did not rush. It circled slowly, heavy claws scraping against the frozen floor. It was a hunter. It was patient. The human's eyes darted across the cave. He could not fight this creature head-on. It was too large, too strong. His weapon was small. A T had one advantage to fire. Quickly, he grabbed a stick from the fire pit, its tip burning bright. He waved it, and the beast stopped, growling low. Its eyes flickered, not with fear, but with recognition. Fire heard it. Fire was danger. The alien child gasped as the beast retreated a step, growling louder, frustrated but cautious. The human kept the flame raised, his blade ready in his other hand. He spoke softly to the child without turning his head. His words could not be understood, but the meaning was clear. Stay back. Stay hidden. The beast let out another roar, shaking the walls. Then, slowly, it backed into the darkness, its glowing eyes fading until only silence remained. The human waited, his body tense, fire raised high. But the sound of claws scratching grew faint and then vanished. The cave was still. The storm outside screamed, but inside, only the fire cracked. The human lowered the burning stick and placed it back into the fire pit. His hands trembled, but his face stayed calm. He turned toward the child. The little alien stared at him with wide, glowing eyes. For the first time, those eyes did not only hold fear, they also held trust. The child whispered something soft, almost musical. The human could not understand, but he felt its meaning. It was gratitude. He gave a faint smile. Exhausted, he sat down by the fire. The child crawled closer, still wrapped in the blanket, and sat near him. The fire's warmth reached them both, pushing away the deadly cold. For a while, they were quiet. Only the fire spoke, its crackles echoing in the icy chamber. The human pulled out a flask of water and took a sip. Then, noticing the child's dry lips, he handed it over. The child looked at it curiously, then carefully drank. A drop of water slid down its chin and froze almost instantly. The human chuckled softly. The child looked at him, surprised by the sound, then gave a small, uncertain smile. The storm outside howled louder. Snow slammed against the cave's entrance. The human stood, walking deeper inside, holding the fire torch high. The walls were strange here, glittering with ice crystals that shimmered like stars. It was beautiful, but dangerous. Sharp edges jutted out from the walls, and the ground was uneven. The child followed carefully, its steps light and quiet. The human raised his hand, signaling it to stop. Something wasn't right. The air grew heavy. The silence was deep, too deep. No growl, no scrape. But the human's instincts told him they were not alone. He turned the torch toward the far end of the cave. At first, he saw nothing, just black stone, ice, and shadows. But then, a faint glimmer, not from the fire. Eyes. Watching the human's grip tightened on his blade. The child whispered again, voice trembling, "Storm beast." But no. These eyes were different, smaller, faster. Not one pair, many shapes began to move along the walls. Thin, crawling creatures, their bodies like shards of ice, long limbs dragging across the stone. Their teeth clicked together, sharp and jagged. They hissed, a chilling sound that echoed in the cave. The child gasped, clutching the human's arm. The human pulled it behind him, raising the torch. The firelight reflected in dozens of icy eyes. The creatures hissed louder, surrounding them. In the glittering dark, the human's chest tightened. He could not fight them all. He had to think. He looked at the fire, their only weapon. The creatures feared heat. That was the key. Quickly, he moved back toward the fire pit, the child clinging to his side. He grabbed burning branches and thrust them around, creating a circle of light. The creatures hissed, staying just beyond the flames. They wanted blood, but they could not pass the fire. The alien child stared at the fire, then at the creatures, then at the human. Its small voice spoke again, broken but clear enough for one word to reach him: safe. The human looked down at it, sweat freezing on his brow. His voice was steady, even though his heart raced. Safe. For now, the child's glowing eyes softened. For the first time, its trembling stopped. It believed him. The human stared into the shadows, gripping his weapon tightly. The creatures waited, patient, watching. The fire would not last forever. When it died, they would strike. The storm outside raged. The cave inside whispered with danger, and the fragile shelter of ice, meant to protect, had become their prison. The human knew one thing. The real fight had not even begun. The circle of firelight flickered weakly, its glow pushing back the crawling creatures at the edge of the cave. Their eyes shone like shards of broken glass, dozens of them staring, waiting, patient. The alien child clung to the human side, breathing fast, whispering in its own tongue. The human kept his blade ready, his other hand holding a burning branch high. The creatures hissed, their thin bodies twisting in the shadows. They wanted to strike. They wanted to drag their prey into the dark. But fire was a wall they could not cross. For now, the human's eyes scanned the chamber, mind racing. The fire would not last forever. When the flames died, the creatures would rush in. He needed a plan. He needed to keep the child alive. The storm outside howled its voice, echoing through the cave like a warning. And then it happened. From deeper within the cave, a new sound rose. A low rumble, deep and powerful, shaking the ice. The creatures hissed louder, shifting nervously. Their icy eyes turned toward the sound. The child stiffened, pulling the blanket tighter. Its voice trembled as it spoke one word again and again. Beast. Beast. The human's breath caught. He remembered the roar he had heard before. Titi, the shadow he had seen. The storm beast. The rumble grew into a roar that shook the cave walls, sending snow and shards of ice crashing from the ceiling. The smaller creatures scattered, vanishing into cracks in the rock. They were hunters, but even hunters knew when to run. They would not challenge the true master of this cave. The human's torchlight caught movement, massive movement. The shadow stretched across the wall, towering, monstrous. Two glowing white eyes opened in the dark, brighter than all the others combined. The storm beast stepped forward. Its body was enormous, covered in plates of frozen armor. Spikes of ice jutted from its back, glimmering in the firelight. Its mouth opened, releasing a wave of mist so cold the fire nearly flickered out. Its claws dug deep into the ice floor, leaving cracks with every step. The alien child let out a sob, hiding behind the human. The human gritted his teeth, planting his feet firmly. His blade looked small, almost useless against such a creature. But his eyes did not break. He had survived storms before. He would not bow to this one. The beast roared again, the sound shaking the air like thunder. The fire trembled, nearly dying. The human quickly grabbed another burning branch and waved it high. The flames snapped back, casting the chamber in orange light. The beast stopped, its eyes narrowing. Fire. Again, fire was the only weapon that made it hesitate. But unlike the smaller creatures, this one did not fear its hit, only hated it. The beast lunged forward. The human shoved the child back, yelling a word the alien did not understand but knew meant run. The child stumbled toward the wall, clutching the blanket. The human rolled aside as the beast's claws slashed down, cracking the ground where he had stood. Shards of ice exploded into the air. He swung his burning branch, striking the beast's face. The flames licked its frozen skin, and the beast roared in fury. The smell of scorched ice filled the cave. The creature stumbled back, shaking its massive head. The human did not waste time. He grabbed the child and pulled it toward a narrow tunnel at the side of the cave. But the beast was fast. Too fast. It slammed its claw into the ground, blocking the path. Snow and dust rained down. The child screamed, tears glowing as they rolled down its cheeks. The human turned, fire still in one hand, blade in the other. His breath came in sharp bursts, but his stance was unshaken. The beast roared again and struck. The human dodged, barely escaping as the claw smashed into stone. He countered with his blade, slicing into the beast's arm. The cut was shallow, but it bled thick, icy liquid spilling onto the ground and freezing instantly. The creature roared louder, the sound almost deafening. The cave trembled, cracks spreading across the ceiling. The storm outside seemed to scream with it, as if the cave and the storm were one. The child pressed against the wall, whispering words the human could not understand. But one thing was clear, in its eyes, pleading. It begged him not to die. The human's grip tightened. He was not going to die. Not here. Not while this child still needed him. He grabbed a burning branch and hurled it at the beast's face. The fire burst against its frozen skin, forcing it to rear back with another roar. In that brief moment, the human seized the child, pulling it toward the tunnel again. The path was narrow, jagged, but it was the only chance. He pushed the child ahead, shouting for it to crawl fast. The child obeyed, scrambling through the crack in the ice. The beast lunged again, its massive claws scraping the tunnel entrance. The human ducked inside, fire torch held high. The beast slammed its body against the wall, trying to break through, but the tunnel was too small. For now, they were safe. The human and child crawled deeper into the icy passage, their breaths sharp and fast. Behind them, the beast roared in fury, its sound echoing through the frozen stone. The storm outside howled in answer. The tunnel was dark, endless, twisting deeper into the mountain. The firelight flickered against the icy walls, painting shadows that moved like ghosts. The child's small hand clutched the human's sleeve, refusing to let go. The human glanced back once. Through the crack, he saw the beast's glowing eyes. Watching, waiting. It could not follow, but it would not leave. The cave had given them shelter. But now, it had also given them a prison. And in that prison, the storm's shadow still hunted. The narrow tunnel shook with every roar of the storm beast. Ice cracked, stone trembled. The human and the alien child crawled deeper, their breaths, sharp hearts racing. Behind them, through the crack, the beast's glowing eyes burned like two frozen suns. It could not fit inside, but it did not leave. It was waiting. The human stopped, listening. The storm outside screamed, but here, the sound was muted. Instead, the cave whispered with danger. Water dripped somewhere in the darkness, echoing like slow footsteps. The child pressed close to him, clutching the blanket. Its glowing eyes looked up, wide with fear. The human touched the child's shoulder gently. His voice was low, calm. Though his chest tightened, quiet, stay close. The words meant nothing to the alien, but the tone carried meaning. The child nodded, trembling. They kept moving, the tunnel twisting like a serpent. The fire torch flickered, shadows crawling across the icy walls. Then suddenly, the ground dipped sharply. The human slid down, catching himself on jagged ice. The child squeaked in fear, sliding after him. He caught the small body in his arms just in time. The tunnel opened into a wider chamber. The ceiling glowed faintly with crystals, shining like trapped stars. It was almost beautiful. But beauty in this cave was a trap. A sound cut through the silence. Not the roar of the beast, not the hiss of the crawling creatures. This was different, like wings, beating slowly. The human raised his torch. From the ceiling, shadows shifted. Figures hung upside down, their long bodies curled, frozen wings wrapped around them. The child gasped, whispering in its tongue. The human didn't understand the words, but the fear was clear. The creatures stirred. One by one, their wings spread. Wide, thin, icy wings, sharp at the edges like blades. Their heads turned, and dozens of eyes glowed faint blue. They hissed in unison, a chilling song that filled the chamber. The human stepped back, pulling the child with him. But the creatures dropped from the ceiling, landing silently on the icy floor. They circled, their wings scraping, their claws clicking. The child pressed against him, trembling. The human's grip tightened on the torch. Fire had saved them before. Fire was their only chance. He thrust the torch forward, flames snapping. The creatures hissed, pulling back slightly. But unlike the smaller beasts, these ones did not scatter. They moved cautiously, clever, waiting for the fire to die. The human's eyes narrowed. He knew time was running out. He needed an escape. He scanned the chamber, searching. And then he saw it a narrow crack at the far side, glowing faintly with light. It could be another exit. Or maybe it was only ice reflecting. But it was hope. He looked at the child. The small alien's eyes glistened with tears, glowing softly. Safe, it whispered. The single human word it had learned. The human nodded firmly. Safe. But we must move. He reached into his pack, pulling out a small canister fuel for the fire starter. He opened it, splashing liquid across the icy floor. The creatures hissed, sensing danger. The human lit the fuel. Flames erupted, racing across the ground in a blazing line. The creatures screeched, pulling back sharply. The fire spread fast, filling the chamber with heat and light. Run! The human shouted, grabbing the child's hand. Together, they sprinted toward the crack in the wall. The creatures shrieked behind them, their wings flapping in fury. The fire slowed them, but it would not last. The human and child reached the crack. It was tight, jagged, but just big enough. He pushed the child through first. The alien squeezed inside, crawling fast. The human followed, torch still in hand. Behind them, the creatures slammed against the flames, their screeches echoing like knives on stone. The chamber roared with fury. But the fire held them back just long enough. The tunnel twisted again, narrower and steeper. The human and child crawled, scratched, slipped, but kept moving. Finally, the ice thinned. A faint glow shone ahead. Not the orange of fire, not the white of crystals. This was different daylight. The child gasped, pointing with its tiny hand. Light, it whispered, voice full of hope. The human pushed harder, his body aching lungs. Burning. At last, they broke through. Snow blinded them at first. The storm was still raging, But here, high on a ridge, the sky was faintly visible. Gray clouds twisted, snow fell heavy. But it was open. Free, the child fell to its knees in the snow, staring up, tears freezing on its face. The human bent over, panting, gripping his knees. He looked back at the crack they had crawled from. A roar shook the mountain, the storm beast. The human's chest tightened. The creature had not given up. It was out there, somewhere in the storm, hunting. The child grabbed his hand, eyes wide. Safe. It whispered again. The human looked down at it, then at the endless storm around them. His voice was steady, strong. Not yet, but soon. He pulled the child close, wrapping the blanket tighter. His eyes scanned the horizon. There, faint in the distance, half hidden by snow, was the dark shape of a structure. Not rock, not ice. Something built, shelter, or maybe danger. But it was their only chance. The human lifted the child into his arms and began to move. The storm whipped around them, snow biting at their skin. The mountain roared again. The beast's voice carried through the blizzard. They had escaped the cave, but the hunt was not over. The beast was still out there, and now. The real escape plan had only just begun. Snow whipped across the ridge, biting into skin like tiny knives. The human carried the alien child close against his chest, pushing forward step by step. The storm roared, covering the world in white. Behind them, faint but real, the beast's roar echoed through the mountains. It was still hunting. It would not stop. The child's glowing eyes peeked out from under the blanket. Its small hand clutched the human's coat tightly, afraid to let go. Every few moments, it whispered one word it had learned, soft and trembling. Safe. The human glanced down, his face half hidden by frost. His breath came out in clouds, heavy and tired, but his eyes stayed steady. Not yet, he murmured. But I'll get you there. The child could not understand the full meaning, but it felt the promise in his voice. Through the storm, the human spotted the dark shape he had seen earlier, a structure, half buried in snow, its edges sharp against the white. As they drew closer, he saw it clearly, a ruin, a collapsed tower of stone and steel, long abandoned. The human pushed forward, crunching through the deep snow. He ducked into the broken entrance, stepping into shadow. The storm's scream dimmed, replaced by the echo of dripping water. The ruin was quiet. Too quiet, he set the child down gently, keeping the blanket wrapped tight. The child looked around. Wide-eyed, its glowing gaze moved across the walls. Strange markings were carved into the stone. Symbols, circles, spirals. L. Not human. Not old cave scratches. Something else. The child's eyes widened. Its lips moved, whispering in its own tongue. The words carried weight, like memory. Its small hand reached out and touched one of the symbols. The stone glowed faintly. Under its touch, light pulsing outward like ripples in water, the human froze. His hand moved to his weapon, but he did not strike. He only watched. The child stepped back, its body trembling, not from cold, but from something deeper. It turned to the human, its voice shaking. This time, in broken, halting human words, it spoke more than one. My people. Here, the human blinked, stunned. He had not expected the child to speak his language again. Not so soon. Not with such clarity. He crouched down, searching the child's face. Your people, he asked slowly. The child nodded, tears glowing in its eyes. Gone, storm, beast. Its small voice cracked. It pressed a hand to its chest. Me, last. The human's chest tightened. He had suspected the child was important, but this was heavier than he imagined. This was not just a lost child. This was the last survivor of a people. The ruin trembled slightly, a gust of wind whistling through the cracks. The human placed a hand on the wall. The symbols glowed faintly where the child had touched. He understood now this place had once belonged to the child's kind. A shelter, a memory, a tomb. The child knelt on the icy floor, whispering in its tongue. Tears fell, freezing before they touched the stone. The human stood silently, giving space, watching with heavy eyes. He knew grief when he saw it, and this grief was not small. It was the grief of a world lost. But grief did not last long. A deep sound shook the ruin, a growl rolling like thunder. The beast, it was close. Very close. The child's eyes shot to the human, full of fear. Safe. It whispered again, desperate. The human knelt, placing his hand firmly on the child's shoulder. "I'll keep you safe," he said. His voice was stronger now, filled with certainty. No matter what. The ruin groaned as the storm outside grew stronger. The beast's roar echoed again, louder, closer. The human scanned the ruin quickly. His eyes caught a broken staircase leading upward. It might give them a better view, maybe even an escape. He lifted the child again, climbing the steps carefully. Each one cracked under his weight, but he pressed on. At the top, the ruin opened into a shattered hall. The ceiling was broken, letting in weak daylight through falling snow. From here, the human saw far across the mountains. The storm stretched. Endless, a sea of white. But in the distance, barely visible through the haze, was something different. A faint glimmer of light, artificial. A ship. A human ship. Hope surged through him. If he could reach that ship, they could escape this frozen world. The child followed his gaze, eyes widening. Its small voice trembled, but it spoke again. "Help. My people promise." The human looked at the glowing eyes, at the tears that carried the weight of an entire race. He understood. This child was not just asking for safety. It was asking for survival for a future. He placed his hand gently over its small one. "I promise," he said, his voice firm. "I will not let you be the last." The child's tears glowed brighter, but this time they did not freeze. They shimmered with a fragile hope. The beast roared again, shaking the mountain. Snow fell from the broken ceiling. The human pulled the child close, eyes narrowing toward the sound. The beast would come soon. But now he had more than survival. He had a mission: protect the child, reach the ship, keep the promise. He gripped his weapon tighter, fire still burning in his other hand. The child held on to him, whispering the only human word it knew with full faith. "Safe?" The human nodded once. Not yet. But soon. The storm screamed outside, the beast closed in, and the ruin trembled around them. The secret was revealed. The child was the last of its kind, and the fight to protect it had only just begun. The ruin shook. Snow fell through the broken ceiling in heavy waves. The beast's roar thundered across the mountain, so close now that the walls trembled with every sound. The human held the alien child close, eyes fixed on the distant glow beyond the stormy ship, faint but real. Their last hope. The child clutched his coat, glowing tears slipping down its cheeks. Its voice was soft, broken, but steady. "Safe." The human looked down, his jaw tight, his breath sharp in the cold. "Not yet," he said, "but soon." He lifted the child into his arms. The blanket wrapped tight and descended the cracked staircase. Each step groaned under his boots, echoing like drums of war. Outside, the storm screamed louder, but it was not only the wind. The beast was hunting at the ruin's entrance. The human paused. Snow whipped across the world, hiding everything in white. But he knew the beast was there, waiting in the storm. He could feel its presence, heavy and suffocating. The child trembled, burying its face against his chest. The human adjusted his grip on the torch in one hand and the blade in the other. His voice dropped to a whisper, "Hold on." He stepped out into the storm. The cold bit into his skin instantly. The wind pushed hard, but he forced his way forward. Each step sank deep into the snow. The glow of the ship was distant, almost. Impossible to see through the blizzard, but it was there. A beacon of survival. Then the ground shook. The snow in front of him split apart as the beast rose from the storm itself. Its massive body towered above, armored in jagged ice. It's glowing. White eyes burning with fury. The storm abated, swirling faster, screaming louder. The human stopped, his breath caught in his throat. The child whimpered, whispering in its tongue. Its small hand gripped his coat tighter, heart racing like a drum. The beast roared, shaking the mountain, its icy breath blasting forward. The human shielded the child with his body, the cold cutting like knives. The torch flickered dangerously, almost dying, but it did not. The flame clung stubbornly, weak but alive. Just like them, the human raised the torch high, shouting into the storm. His words were lost in the wind, but his meaning was clear. "You will not take this child." The beast lunged, the human dodged. Snow exploding under the monster's claw. He swung the torch across its face, the fire searing its frozen skin. The beast roared in fury, stumbling back. The human set the child down gently in the snow, then turned to face the monster fully. The child's eyes glowed brighter than ever, tears streaming as it whispered one word, the only human word it trusted: safe. The human nodded once, gripping his blade tighter. "Safe," he echoed. "I'll make sure of it." The beast struck again, faster this time. The human rolled aside, his blade slashing across its leg. The wound froze instantly, but the beast roared in rage, swinging its massive arm. The human was thrown back, crashing into the snow. His chest burned, his body screamed in pain, but he rose again. He would not fall. Not here. The beast charged. The human lit another branch with the last of his fuel and hurled it into the snow between them. Flames burst upward, a wall of fire. The beast roared, slamming into it, ice cracking and melting under the heat. "Now!" The human shouted, grabbing the child again. He ran, pushing through the storm toward the ship's glow. The beast howled behind them, smashing through the fire. Snow shook loose from the cliffs, avalanches thundering down. The human stumbled, his legs heavy, lungs burning. But he kept running. The child clung to him, whispering over and over, "Safe, safe, safe. Safe, safe. Safe, safe." Finally, through the storm, the shape of the ship appeared buried in snow, but intact. Its door was half frozen, covered in ice. The human slammed his shoulder into it again and again, until the metal cracked open. He shoved the child inside first, then followed, slamming the door shut. The storm's howl was muffled, but the beast's roar still thundered outside. The ship shook as claws slammed against it, each strike bending the steel. The human rushed to the controls, his hands shaking. The systems flickered, half dead, frozen from years in the storm. But one light blinked power still lived. He slammed his hand onto the ignition. The ship groaned, engines coughing weakly. Outside, the beast roared louder, slamming harder. The metal bent, the door cracking. The child cried out, clutching the human's arm. Safe. The human met its glowing eyes, his own steady and fierce. "Safe," he said, his voice like steel. "Hold on." The engines roared to life. Heat surged through the ship, ice melting from its frame. The beast clawed furiously, but the ship lifted, breaking free from the snow. The storm screamed, trying to hold them down, but the engines pushed harder, rising higher, higher into the gray sky. The beast leaped, jaws snapping, claws reaching, but it missed. The ship soared upward, leaving it roaring below. The storm raged, but could not stop them. Inside, the child stared out the window, glowing tears streaming. Its voice was small, trembling, but filled with wonder. Safe, the human sat beside. It, exhausted, but alive. His chest rose and fell heavily, but his eyes softened. He reached out, placing a hand gently on the child's shoulder. Safe, he echoed, a faint smile breaking through the frost on his face. For a long moment, they said nothing. The storm fell away below them. The beast's roar faded into silence. The world of ice shrank into nothing. The child leaned against the human, closing its glowing eyes, finally at peace. The human looked forward, toward the stars ahead. He had promised to keep the child safe. He had promised it would not be the last, and he had kept that promise.